Good morning, everyone. This is the Fellowship of Spirit Zoom meeting and our local meeting brought to you from Fellowship of Spirit in Farmington, New Mexico. We're happy that you're here and hope that you will enjoy our program today. It's going to be pretty exciting. Our spiritual reader will be, this is the fifth Sunday. And when we have a fifth Sunday, we have Jerry Lard does our reading, and then Margaret Cheesebro will be doing our music, and Betty is going to sing, and Shaye Johnson is going to give us our message today, and it's a personal one for her, and I'm sure that it will be touching and appropriate, and it will be wonderful. So there we go. My name is Ron Holloway, and I'll be your moderator for today, and just welcome everyone. Okay, so Jerry, do you have any announcements? Nope. Okay, well, we always ask that in the beginning and the end. So, all right. So we're now going to do our prelude, which is Leaning on Everlasting Arms, played by Margaret Cheesebro. All right, thank you, Margaret. Yeah, just to make a marker here, the day is July 30th, 2023. And we're going to have, Susan Barnes is going to offer us an opening prayer.
Take a deep breath and let all negative thoughts be released. Mother, Father, God, creator of all things, we give thanks for this marvelous, wonderful day that you have given us to walk with you, to be with others of like mind, to interact with all of our friends, our family, our loved ones, being a light to them because of the teachings that we are learning now. We give thanks for all of the situations in our life, whether they appear positive or negative, knowing beyond a doubt that you are there walking with us. You are there to provide for us, that you are there for our highest good. For all of these wonderful blessings, we truly give thanks. And so it is. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Okay, now we have another song. I've got Peace Like a River. It's number 356 in the Brown Book.
I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got love like a mountain. I've got love like a mountain. I've got love like a mountain in my soul. I've got love like a mountain. I've got love like a mountain. I've got love like a mountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got love like a mountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got love like a mountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul.
All right, thank you, Betty and Margaret. Okay, so let's do our reflection moment now. Love produces a flow of energy that I now feel. I love others more than ever, and I feel privileged to be here. Love flows from one person to another and create an atmosphere of holiness, and so it is. Okay.
Taylor Swift fans came to her concert in Seattle, scientists were a bit worried that all of her fans might cause something unexpected to happen. When Taylor Swift first comes out during
Okay.
That was Susan. Anyway, so we got her muted. So anyway, okay, Jerry, are you ready for the spiritual reading?
Yeah.
You had almost 2 minutes to prepare, so.
Actually,
It was at 5, okay. Well, I was feeling pretty generous today.
Well, we were reading a very interesting book by Deepak Chopra, and so I'm going to read what Dr. Wayne Dyer has to say about your ego. Your self-importance, basically your feeling of self-importance are what make you feel special. So let's deal with this concept of being special. It's essential that you have a strong self-concept and that you feel unique. The problem is when you misidentify who you truly are by identifying yourself as your body, your achievements, and your possessions. Then you identify people who have accomplished less as inferior, and your self-important superiority causes you to be constantly offended in one way or another. This misidentification is the source of most of your problems, as well as most of the problems of humankind. Feeling special leads us to our self-importance. Castaneda writes later in his life, many years after his initial emergence into the world of sorcery about the futility of self-importance. The more I thought about it, the more I talked to and observed myself and my fellow men, the more intense the conviction that something was rendering us incapable of any activity or any interaction or any thought that did not have the self as its focal point. With this self as a focal point, you sustain the illusion that you are your body, which is a completely separate entity from all others. This sense of separateness leads you to compete rather than cooperate with everyone else. Ultimately, it's a no match with spirit and becomes a huge obstacle to your connection to the power of intention. And we love the power of intention. In order to relinquish your self-importance, you'll have to become aware of how entrenched it is in your life. Ego is simply an idea of who you are that you carry around with you. As such, it cannot be surgically removed by having an egoectomy. I like that word. The idea of who you think you are will persistently erode any possibility you have of connection to intention. There are 7 steps for overcoming ego's hold on you. Stop being offended. Let go of your need to win. Let go of your need to be right. Let go of your need to be superior. Let go of your need to have more. Let go of identifying yourself on the basis of achievements. And let go of your reputation. And then there are 5 suggestions for implementing the ideas in this chapter. Monitor your own inner dialogue. Lighten moments of doubt and depression. Be aware of low energy. Talk to your ego and let it know that it has no control over you today. View obstacles as an opportunity to circulate the power of your unbending intent. And if you want to read more on those subjects, this book is wonderful. The Power of Intention. Thank you all.
Thank you. We just need to send our ego to its room with no supper, right?
Sometimes.
All right. So now we have another beautiful song by Margaret and Betty. I Am God's Melody of Life, number 186.
Now, it's a short song, so we're going to sing it twice. Then when it gets to the end, we're going to repeat the last 2 lines 2 more times, getting softer each time. Got it? Just follow me. Okay. I am God's melody of life. He sings his song through me. I am God's rhythm and harmony. He sings his song through me. A song of life, of radiant life, of life so full and free. I am God's melody of life. He sings his song through me. I am God's melody of life. He sings his song through me. I am God's rhythm and harmony. He sings his song through me. A song of life, of radiant life, of life so full and free. I am God's melody of life. He sings his song through me. I am God's melody of life. He sings his song through me. I am God's melody of life. He sings his song through me.
All right. Thank you, ladies. Shaye Johnson is a valued member of our community. She came to us a couple of years ago, and she has been a valuable asset ever since. And she does all sorts of things around here for us and to help us to do things, and her smiling face is always here. We thought that we were going to lose her early on. She was going to move to the Northwest, but as things turned out, she is still here with us, and is now has her own apartment, and she's doing really well. And I want to welcome Shaye Johnson.
Good morning, can you all hear me? No? I'll move it up closer. Better? That's good. Okay. Hi, good morning. Okay, for those of you here and online and watching this video, I'm going to tell you a secret. My legal name is Shaye Johnson, but I haven't always had this name. I was born a Bookoff, and my first name was Chantel. I don't often tell people my birth name, but since this is going up on YouTube, I decided to mention it. If you're out there watching this video, you can verify my story by using my birth name. I was born into an independent fundamental Baptist family. A little explanation. Independent refers to how each church governs itself without affiliation or convention. Fundamental means that they take the King James Version of the Bible literally. And Baptist means that individuals, having been saved, must be baptized in order to become members of the church. I call this loose association of churches the IFB. I do so because, though independent, they fellowship with other churches of like faith, and because they follow a unifying body of doctrine, and because saying the IFB is shorter than saying Independent Fundamental Baptist every time I want to refer to them. There was a time I thought the IFB had the market cornered for strict standards and doctrines. Things like dancing, going to the theater, wearing pants for girls were forbidden. So was swimming in mixed company, kissing before the wedding day, and drinking alcohol. And there were as many do's as there were don'ts. We had to be in church every time the doors were open, Sunday morning and evening, Wednesday evening, Saturday morning visitation. We were to be faithful at witnessing every day with people we met, not just on door knocking. And we were to present ourselves in such a way that God was glorified by dressing and behaving modestly and by abstaining from even the appearance of evil. That meant root beer that came in a brown glass bottle, you couldn't have it because it looked like something else. Might be mistaken for real beer. And yesterday, my parents got some of that Durango soda. You know, it comes in the brown bottles. And they wanted it enough where they looked past the brown bottles, but it was still a problem for them. My parents weren't raised in the IFB. They converted as adults and latched onto the doctrines right away. They were new parents and they had experienced pain in their childhoods. They felt they hadn't been raised right and they wanted to do better for their children. And what parent doesn't want that? So the IFB became their legacy to us kids. It wasn't the worst way to be raised, honestly. We were sheltered from a lot of things, but it also wasn't completely benign. But I'm not here to talk about toxic doctrines. I'm just here to talk about my journey. I'll begin with a point in my childhood where Dad felt a call to be a pastor. He moved our family to northern Idaho to start a church about the year that I turned 12. We knocked on a lot of doors and handed out hundreds of flyers. The church started out well, with about 40 people. but the numbers shrank from there. Some people decided they didn't believe what my dad was preaching, and they left, and they tried to pull their friends out with them, so there were gaping holes in our community. Some other people criticized our family, saying that we weren't good enough to be in the ministry, and others wrote hateful letters about my dad. When I graduated from high school, I attended Heartland Baptist Bible College in Oklahoma City. I had made a commitment to God to become a missionary, so I signed up for the missions course. One of the hardest things about college was hearing that God would bless your ministry if you only stayed faithful. And if God didn't bless your ministry, then you weren't doing it right. Or there was sin in your life or your family's. I watched my dad work so hard to do things right, but our family was a mess. There was a lot of anger and fighting among us. At the time, I blamed my mother for our troubles. She had mood swings from crippling depression and bouts of crying to quick outbursts of anger. Us kids were homeschooled, so there was almost nowhere to get away from our family's troubles. My brother and sister fought against my parents and the type of biblical discipline that they used. I often hid in books and reading in my room, or I hid in my imagination, making up stories of how I would be rescued from my family one day. Back at college, I completed my 4th year and was ready to graduate. By that time, my dad's health was failing. He had the beginning of Parkinson's, but it wasn't diagnosed until several years later. My family was sick of trying to make the little church work, and they closed it down. I felt completely betrayed. I felt God hadn't kept his promises, and I felt my family hadn't hung in there and tried hard enough. This is where doubts started for me. After graduation, my family moved to South Dakota, my parents' birthplace. I lived with them for a couple years, waiting for the opportunity to go to the missionary field. In the IFB, a single woman missionary isn't well received. She would be better off married and going to the field with her husband. If not, she needed to have the blessings of her father and her pastor, never mind if she was of age. Plus, she had to have a clear calling from God. So I waited, and finally an opportunity came up to work in an orphanage in Malawi. Mom and Dad and my brother went with me on a survey trip. It didn't go well. The missionary running the orphanage had questionable ethics, and my parents found out that he did not match up on doctrine. For instance, he practiced close communion instead of closed. Close communion meant you could partake in the Lord's Supper if you were a member of a like-minded church. Closed communion meant you could only partake in the Lord's Supper if you were a member of the church offering it. I knew I couldn't work at that orphanage. But what do you tell children that need your help? That you aren't coming back? In the face of such need, doctrine felt petty. I went a little crazy that summer. I felt depressed. I felt so angry and restless I wanted to crawl out of my skin. And I felt really tempted to walk away from the IFB, but I wasn't ready to do that. Instead, I went back to Heartland Baptist Bible College and enrolled in their new church secretary course. But going back to college didn't take away the anger and depression. In fact, it made it worse. My mentor, the Dean of Women, noticed that something was wrong and confronted me. At the time, I was very angry with God. I was thinking that he either didn't exist or that he was mean and arbitrary. When I told the Dean of Women my thoughts and how I thought I could prove myself right if I left the IFB, anger flashed in her eyes. And I felt like God was gonna strike me dead right there. So I quickly got back in line. My mentor and I started intensive nouthetic counseling. Nouthetic counseling is based on the belief that only the Bible is needed for counseling, no matter the situation or mental illness. She thought I was lesbian and that I was being oppressed by a demon. So everything we did was to loosen its hold on me. And that is perhaps a story for another time. After the course of counseling was finished, I worked really hard to stay free of demonic influence. I was hired to work on staff at the college in the finance department, and I did all right for a while. I was anxious, however, that I was doing things right. For instance, I was supposed to protect myself from the demon by putting on the armor of God every day, but I was never sure I had done it right. One day at work, I had the thought that if I didn't believe in God, I would be a much happier person. So I let myself let go of belief for 5 minutes, and it was great. But then I felt guilty, so I put the blinders back on. Then I had the big decision of what to do about God. Would I quit believing altogether? Or would I set my doubts aside and believe in spite of everything? And then one day I realized I didn't believe anymore. And I didn't have to make that decision. Instead, I had to decide what to do now that I didn't believe. We were taught that there was nothing good outside the IFB. So I had to find out if that was true and if life was worth living. I said nothing to anyone. I knew if I said something, they would convince me to stay in the IFB. For several months, I read books from the library about atheism, evolution, morals without God. I got internet and watched videos about leaving Christianity and breaking down the concept of God. Then came the day I couldn't go on hiding my unbelief. I wrote a resignation letter to the college's executive vice president, and we met together. I told him I didn't believe in God anymore. He basically said, well, if that's how you feel, I'm not going to try to argue with you. And that was it. It was spring break then, and I had told them I'd work till the end of the school year. But he explained that the board of directors wouldn't take kindly to it if they let a known atheist work on the board or work on staff. So they gave me a severance package and sent me on my way. And I was asked to leave without talking to anyone.
Wow.
As I did so, I felt ashamed and guilty, as if I hadn't tried hard enough or long enough. Like the sunshine of God's love and approval would have burst through to me if I had held on just a little longer. While I also felt relief, I felt a great sadness. I was leaving my job, my way of life, my community, and almost everyone I knew. I cried my eyes out that day and the next day as I called family and some others to tell them what was happening to me. I was told I needed sleep and proper nourishment, and then this crazy notion of leaving the IFB was going to pass. I was told I wasn't the only one who felt pain and doubts, but they had come to different conclusions than me. They chose to believe because if they turned out to be wrong, then they still had lived a good life. But if I turned out to be wrong, I would suffer God's punishment. I have carried scars from the teachings of the IFB and from the nouthetic counseling. I've seen psychologists to undo the damage, but even there, I was told I had given up on God too soon. And I was told I took the teachings of the IFB too literally. They surely hadn't meant for me to do everything I did to get God's love and approval. Another time, a dear minister told me that I threw out the baby with the bathwater. She meant I had thrown out God when I got rid of the IFB. But you have to understand, I was trained to see God only one way. So, and to automatically reject other views. So to free myself from the arbitrary, judgmental God that I knew, I had to cut out God completely. I used atheism as a tool to get out. Now, as I am healing, I'm slowly adding spirit back. Leaving fundamentalism, whatever the denomination or religion, is hard. And it's different for everyone. When I left the IFB, I moved back to South Dakota and began a new life. I picked a new name, Shaye, and started out from scratch. One thing I found out was that weekends are really long if you don't have church to fill it. I found a Unitarian Universalist church one day as I was driving, and I remembered how they were accepting of all faiths, even atheism. So I tried it out, and it became my community for several years. The past 12 years have been long and difficult ones at times, but so worth it. If you're on a similar journey and need someone to talk to, reach out to me at Fellowship of Spirit, or reach out to me through Fellowship of Spirit in Farmington, New Mexico. I'm giving permission for them to give out my phone number and my email, and I can point you in the direction of some help. And I will listen without judgment. Here are some things you can try in the meantime. Google BaptistDeception.com. It is the website of a former IFB member and deals specifically with toxic doctrines taught by the IFB. Also, Google Journey 3. It's a support group dedicated to helping people transition out of harmful religions, recover from trauma, and rebuild their lives. It was started by Dr. Marlene Winnell, and she wrote the book, Leaving the Fold, a guide for former fundamentalists and others leaving their religion. Also, Google Divorcing Religion. This website by Janice Selby offers an online live interactive 6-week workshop designed to help you transition out of religion and into secular life. She also puts out a podcast by the same name, Divorcing Religion. I discovered this podcast just a few weeks ago and learned a new word, scrupulosity. If there is interest in another talk from me sometime, I will talk more about scrupulosity. It's a religious or moral form of obsessive compulsive disorder. In the meantime, thank you for listening to my journey out of fundamentalism. Namaste.
Anyone have anything that they would like to say to Shaye?
What bravery to talk about this. This is very similar to what I would do. We'll talk later.
Thank you.
I think most of us in here were on a different religious path at one time before we found this one here. So we think we can resonate and share, identify with the wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you for your honesty and sharing.
Yeah, Shaye, I want to thank you for your courage, because it takes courage. Courage overcomes, the fear or the programming that you went through as a child. I know that you didn't really dwell on it, but we can recognize the courage that it took for you to come and tell your story at all, okay? Because part of the things that, how they keep people, in a dysfunctional situation is don't tell and don't
Yeah.
say anything. And whatever you do, don't tell any secrets outside of the family.
Mhm.
And and that's ingrained in the whole thinking from when you were a child, I'm sure. But anyway, we appreciate your courage and your love that you bring to us. And then, like Bill was talking about us, our congregation is made up of people who found other religions wanting. That we don't in our it's a trap to try to put down one religion over another. So we don't raise anything any above another, but we just want to make sure that everyone is welcome, and that it's our thought is God as you understand Him. Nobody in here is ever going to tell you you have to believe this. We have no doctrine. We have nothing that says you have to believe this to belong to our canoe club. It doesn't. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you want to be here, we want you to be here. And so, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, Shaye, thank you very much. That was great.
Thank you, Carol.
Yes, you're a good advocate for coming out of the religion and finding a place here with us. Thank you.
So we practice our spirituality religiously. We don't practice religion. So anyway, so thank you, Shaye. All right, let's give her a hand. Wonderful talk, wonderful testimony, and just as the lights go on, things get brighter, and your light came on, and you certainly make our fellowship much brighter by your presence, and we thank you for that. Okay, so where we at now? We're going to have another song, "Living Abundantly," number 111, 111 in the Brown Book.
1 second.
This is a new, is this on? This is a new song, but it's a very easy song. For some reason, I felt like I just had to play this song today. And after listening to Shaye's talk, I think I understand why. I'm gonna go ahead and play the first verse completely, just so you get the feel of it. I won't do the refrain because it's pretty simple. So after you hear the first verse, then we'll start singing.
Living abundantly, living with
Thank you, Shay and Margaret. We appreciate you. All right, so Bill's coming forward to do our celebration of abundance. So let us put over our heart that which we intend to contribute. And repeat after me. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive through infinity. I am prosperous. Thank you, Bill. Okay, thank you, Bill. So is there anyone have anything that they'd like to say at this time, or any announcements? Okay, in that case, Bill Clark is going to come and give us a closing word.
Good morning, everyone. Shaye's talk reminded me, I guess it was in my early 40s, that I figured out there was a difference between religion and spirituality.
Amen.
And once you make a step over that bridge, life opens up really differently. Did I hear an amen?
Yeah.
Okay. Today's reading is Receiving Forgiveness. Many promising reconciliations have broken down because while both parties came prepared to forgive, neither party came prepared to be forgiven. Charles Williams. It takes grace to forgive another person, and it takes special measure of grace to receive forgiveness. Sometimes it's a relief to know the other forgives us, but sometimes it feels awkward. Maybe it's because being forgiven requires that we admit we did something wrong and we might need to change. You've got to put that little ego in the back seat. I can have the grace to not only give forgiveness, but also to receive it. God bless you, and everybody have a wonderful week.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to remind everyone that we have Course in Miracles on Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock. We have Power of 8 at 6:30 on Thursdays. The Course in Miracles is led by Susan Barnes. The Power of 8 is led by Margaret Cheesebro. We have Sunday morning at 8:45. We have our book study. Right now, we're reading a book by Deepak Chopra, and I don't know what our next one's going to be. We're about 3/4 of the way through the book, aren't we? I think so.
I don't know, it's only half.
Only half? Okay, so we have quite a bit of things, but it's all good, and it's all about love and connectedness, and not about separation and rules and regulations that we have to follow. So, and then of course our Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, we have our main service. So
One little announcement, next Sunday is potluck.
next Sunday is the first Sunday of the month, and it is, so we'll have our potluck dinner, and I've never been to a potluck that I didn't like. You know, it's really good. Everybody brings good dishes, and we have a great time and fellowship and talk, and just it's good. And we wish that all the people that were on our Zoom could be here with us, but it's not possible to. Although virtual food is okay, it's not very nourishing. So anyway, so come and be with us next Sunday, and in the meantime, let's gather up and form a circle, and we will sing ourselves out of here.
What's the first song we sing?
God bless America.
Let me do that chair all the way.
And then leave, and then. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Weave us together, weave us together in unity and love. Weave us together, weave us together in unity and yes, there is peace on earth, and yes, it begins with me. Yes, there is peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our Father, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Yes, there is peace on earth. Yes, this is the moment now. With every breath I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Yes, there is peace on earth, and yes, it begins with me.
Be sure to share the love that's within you with someone else this week. And may God bless you and keep you until we meet again. Amen. All right. So that concludes our ceremony. We hope you had a good time and got something of value out of it. And we hope to see you next week. Goodbye.